Singing is what I do. It's not who I am.
Hear how Natalie Grant found her voice.
This is the most innocent among us.
Without making a sound.
I came here trying to learn how I could rescue them.
On today's 700 Club Interactive. Well, welcome to the show. Nick Vujicic, a man born with no arms, no legs, is about to deliver a powerful message to inmates all across America.
The internationally known author and public speaker recently announced he's preparing to share the gospel with more than 600 United States prisons in 21 states. Last week, his ministry posted this on Facebook. God is using Nick's story of hope and trust in him to reach those who are incarcerated. Life Without Limbs is distributing a video talk to prisons that can then be used by chaplains and volunteers during Bible study. Here's a look at Nick speaking to inmates in Telford State Prison in New Boston, Texas. Take a look.
I want you to know that there were times in life where I didn't want to live. And I'm not here just to share with you a sad story. I want to tell you that we all have ups and downs. You see my foot? Ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. You know, kids came up to me at school. I went to actually Australia. I was born and raised in Australia. And they come up to me and they're like, "What happened?" And I go up to them and I say, "Cigarettes." And freak them out a little bit.
He is one of the most amazing people.
He is I mean, you look at his life and you look at the joy in him, the ability to laugh through everything, and you just go, what are we complaining about?
And to genuinely enjoy every aspect of his life, and then to give back so much. You know, I mean, God just is so able to trust him with the message he's given him. It's pretty astonishing.
And he's overcome a lot of things. He's married. He's now a father. That is a wonderful
What a joy
story
for him. That's awesome.
Well, abortion has decreased nationwide since 2010, and the reason is that many states now require that women have a pre-abortion ultrasound.
One study shows that 78% of women who've seen their ultrasound choose not to have an abortion. Focus on the Family helps crisis pregnancy centers purchase ultrasound equipment. It's expensive. And since this program started in 2004, over 270,000 abortions have been prevented. That's astonishing.
That is astonishing. And Hope is one of those lives who were saved. Her birth mom was considering abortion, but after seeing the ultrasound, she had a change of heart.
I bought a pregnancy test. I took it and it said positive. And I was shocked. I was like, how could this happen to me? So I called him. He was at school. So I was at his house. I called him and I told him, I said, "I'm pregnant." And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what the pregnancy test says." And he said, "Okay, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it." That was the first words out of his mouth. He wanted to have an abortion. And I didn't question it either because, I mean, I was finishing school. You know, I had my life ahead of me. How was I going to have a baby? How was I going to get pregnant? And how was I going to explain it to my parents? Also during this time, I confided in one of my girlfriends. So she went online and she found a crisis pregnancy center down in San Diego. The last thing that they did during the visit was give me an ultrasound. And I could see on the screen next to me that there was this little, it looked like a bean. So I call it a jumping bean. And it was just moving around and it was jumping up and down. And so right at that moment, I changed my mind and I said, this is a true living thing. It's not just a clump of cells that's not moving and not living. There was something actually living and growing and moving inside me already.
Also, one amazing thing is Miranda. I refer her to go to Focus on Family. And she did. I'm so surprised because in the past she never wanted to listen. But I said, "Can you go to Focus on Family, look something about this subject?" And then she did, and then she said she wanted to keep the baby.
I started becoming more open to adoption. I knew that I needed another option because parenting wasn't going to be the best option for me. After I met them for the first time, I kind of thought, okay, well, if I do go with this adoption plan, they're probably the ones that I would choose. Kind of started very basic discussions of what it would look like to make an open adoption plan with Susan and Alex.
She encapsulates life. And so it's interesting that she is the daughter who has come from this, the situation where, the choice of death was an option. But she absolutely personifies life and energy and vitality. She is on the go.
That is a story of hope. What a wonderful thing to choose life and choose to have it more abundantly.
Yeah, it's a gift. If you find yourself with an unwanted pregnancy and you'd like to talk to someone about it, Focus on the Family has trained counselors who can help you. Just go to their website, focusonthefamily.com, or you can call 1-800-A-FAMILY. They'd be happy to talk with you. Well, odds are many of you just took advantage of Black Friday or even Cyber Monday, but did you know that today is Give Back Tuesday?
Well, I want to tell you about a way you can bless children all over the world. And here's an example of an outreach we did in Vietnam, a country that is 95% Buddhist. And now, thanks to CBN Superbook, 44,000 children understand the real meaning of Christmas.
This past Christmas, CBN's Superbook came to the nation of Vietnam.
This is the very first 3D Christian animation in Vietnam. And everybody loves it, even our secular friends.
Even though it is more than 90% Buddhist here, most people celebrate Christmas.
Everyone in Vietnam knows Christmas. They give greeting cards, say Merry Christmas, and decorate their house. But they don't really know the meaning of Christmas.
Phuc is CBN's national director there. He set up the Superbook outreach in nearly 1,300 churches and in lots of homes. Children invited their Buddhist friends, and more than 44,000 kids heard about Jesus and the real meaning of Christmas.
I learned that Christmas is when Jesus was born. It's also the time when I should worship Him. I enjoyed the time travel. Superbook brought us back to Bible times.
Kids were also encouraged to invite friends to their home to share the Superbook Christmas and creation stories. 10-year-old Kong Nang was one of those kids.
After watching Superbook in church, I wanted to see it again, and I wanted my cousins to watch it so they could learn about Jesus and follow His ways.
I believe in the future, the kids in Vietnam everywhere will see Superbook on television or internet. Everywhere will be in Vietnam.
Thank you, CBN, for bringing Superbook to Vietnam.
Well, today is Give Back Tuesday, and if you want to be a part of giving back on this Tuesday, why not consider a gift to the Superbook DVD Club so that you can support our efforts to bring the stories of the Bible to the children of the world. Vietnam is just one of the countries. We're on 42 languages, on our way to the goal of 50 languages. And there's a broadcast map where you can see all the different languages that we have, all the different places where we're sharing the stories of the Bible. Once we hit those 50 languages, our goal is going to go up by 10 times. We're going to say, can we hit 500 languages? Can we do that with Superbook? So that children get the opportunity to understand the real meaning of Christmas. It's amazing how all the cultures of the world have adopted Christmas, but you go ask them, what is the significance, what is the meaning, and they literally don't know. So you can be a part of it. You can be a part of sharing these wonderful stories. How? Join the Superbook DVD Club. For a gift of $25 or more, we'll send you not just one copy, we'll send you 3 copies of the latest DVD in the series. And then you get to have access to the first 2 seasons, that's 26 episodes, on streaming through any tablet, smartphone, desktop computer. It'll all be yours, so you can have the stories of the Bible. So if you want to do that, give us a call, 1-800-700-7000, or you can go to the website, 700clubinteractive.com.
Boy, I was just in Vietnam in the last year, and that is a miracle to have 44,000 children see this at the holiday season. That's what you call an open door.
Yes.
How wonderful. Well, does what's inside your heart match your outward appearance? Ashley Wilkerson, teaching pastor at Life Center Church in Tacoma, Washington, admits that even in her own life, sometimes looks can be deceiving.
Hi there, it's Ashley. I don't know if you're like me, but I am 100% type A. I'm an achiever. I'm all about doing everything myself. You know, I was not even that good at group projects in school. I was that kid who said, let me do it and then you can put your name on it. Not a good attribute. Jeremiah actually speaks to this. In Jeremiah 17, verse 5 says, "Cursed is the one who trusts in man, who draws strength from mere flesh, and whose heart turns away from the Lord. That person will be like a bush in the wastelands, and they won't see prosperity when it comes." This bush that Jeremiah is speaking of actually is an aurora bush. It's a bush that's indigenous to the Middle Eastern desert. And what's so intriguing about this bush is it actually produces what looks like amazingly lush fruit. And if you walk up to this bush and squeeze the fruit, it feels like it's incredibly juicy. Can you imagine how attractive that would seem to someone walking through the desert who's parched and dying for some sort of juice to drink? What's intriguing is that this specific bush, when you break the fruit open, is full of nothing but this cobweb-looking substance. It's completely empty. And inside of it, the only juice is maybe one drop of what is called the most poisonous serum in the entire desert. In fact, some of the indigenous cultures use it on their arrows to kill animals. What's Jeremiah saying here? He's saying that when you trust in your own strength and turn your heart from the Lord, you may appear to have it all together. You may appear to be refreshing to people. You may appear to have all the answers. But when people break you open and find what's inside, all they'll find is emptiness and death. Make sure today that your trust is totally in the Lord and that your strength is only drawn from Him.
Well, that's a good word for the day. What a wonderful teaching.
It really is, for all of us. I don't think there's anybody that can't learn from that. If you want to see more of Ashley's teachings, all you have to do is go to ashleywilkerson.org. Worth going there.
Well, coming up, she's an award-winning singer and a modern-day abolitionist.
I'll never forget meeting this girl who was sold on her 12th birthday by her own parents. She took my hands and she just said, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus."
Natalie Grant takes a stand against human trafficking when we come back.
At one point in her career, Natalie Grant couldn't sing. She couldn't speak. The 5-time Female Vocalist of the Year was told by doctors that she couldn't even whisper. Oddly enough, that's when Natalie found her true voice. Take a look.
You're a great God, and we love you, Lord.
Award-winning artist Natalie Grant is one of the most recognized names in contemporary Christian music. But in 2004, she says she found a purpose that goes beyond her music career.
The irony is it has very little to do with singing. Singing is what I do. It's not who I am.
She says the journey to discovering her passion started while watching the TV show Law & Order. The episode was about human trafficking.
I just remember that TV show always saying that they were ripped from the headlines, right? And I'm thinking, what headline is this? They were literally depicting kids being sold out of the back of a van in New York City. Like, this is the most innocent among us. But I just remember thinking, if this is actually happening somewhere in the world, I need to know about it, and a lot of other people need to know about it too.
So she made plans to travel to India, the area many consider to be the epicenter of human trafficking. But 2 days before the trip, one of her vocal cords ruptured.
They're like, you may never sing again, you cannot speak, hum, whisper, you can't utter a single sound for at least 30 days. And I'm leaving to India.
Voiceless, she went anyway.
I'll never forget meeting this girl who was sold on her 12th birthday by her own parents, rescued when she was 21, so for 9 years she was trafficked. She knew one thing that she did know in English that she could say to me that I would understand. She took my hands and she just said, Jesus, 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 Jesus. She thought, okay, I can't go into all of my story in English, but when I say this name, you're gonna know that everything's been made right. I came here trying to learn how I could rescue them, and these who have so much brokenness showed me that Jesus does his best work through our broken pieces. When you can't make a sound and all you can do is just lean on God and listen, it is amazing what happens.
In 2005, Natalie co-founded the nonprofit Hope for Justice, whose mission is to bring an end to human trafficking by rescuing victims, restoring lives, and reforming society.
Hope for Justice, which hard to believe that just started as a little dream off of meeting those girls in India, is now on 3 different continents and 4 different countries with 6 different offices. So it's amazing when you use your voice to do what God has placed inside of you.
We can be the change, be the hope, yeah.
Now the artist, wife, mother, and businesswoman hopes to help other women find God's calling in their own lives in her book, Finding Your Voice. In it, she shares her own journey through bulimia, infertility, self-doubt, and depression to find her identity in Christ and God's purpose in her life. And it starts with God's Word.
And all throughout the book, from start to finish, it's full of my story, yes, but more than that, it's full of biblical examples, because the foundation to finding your voice is the Word of God.
Natalie says ultimately a personal relationship with God will give women the confidence to live their passion out loud.
And my prayer is that every person that reads the book, when they put it down, their takeaway would be finding their identity in who Christ says that they are, discovering that personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and that his view, what he sees, seeing ourselves through the lens of Christ and his grace over our life, begins to change every aspect of our life. It will strengthen our marriage. It will strengthen our ability to parent. It will strengthen our friendships. It strengthens everything about our life. And when you can find your voice in first understanding his voice over your life, I think that's my prayer, is that every person who reads it would have a greater understanding of who they are in Christ. And I think that understanding changes everything.
That's sort of the journey in a nutshell, isn't it? Finding out more about who he is and who we are in him. He loves us so much. Well, still ahead, best-selling author Lee Strobel talks about his extreme allergic reaction to medication.
I started to hallucinate. I started to descend into hell in my mind. The room got cold and clammy and dark. I began to see demons. I was unable to move. I looked up at the clock, and the clock was going backwards.
Strobel relives the health scare that led him to a crisis of faith. That's coming up.
Lee Strobel wrote of his journey from resolute atheist to Christian apologist in his book, The Case for Christ. Well, that book has been turned into a movie that's set to release in the spring of 2017. But here's part of the Strobel story that won't be in the movie. A time when Lee was convinced that the God he defended had abandoned him.
Christian apologist and best-selling author Lee Strobel has dedicated his life to proving the claims of Christianity are true. After more than 30 years, he couldn't imagine anything that would make him question his own faith. Then, an unlikely cascade of medical issues brought him to the edge of death, and he got a glimpse of life without God.
There was such a sense of despair and such a sense that if God had abandoned me, then truly there is no hope. And in my mind, I was convinced that he'd walk the other way.
It started when Lee developed complications following a routine heart procedure, but they were undetected and his kidneys began shutting down. it was also affecting his mind.
It was over a period of time that I was getting increasingly irrational and mentally confused. I started to become paranoid. I imagined my wife was leaving me, my children were leaving me, my friends were leaving me. All these terrible things were befalling me in my mind. Emotionally, I was going through them just like they were really happening.
Then it got worse when Lee had an allergic reaction to some medication he took for a problem with his voice. The episodes intensified. One was especially vivid.
I started to hallucinate. I started to descend into hell in my mind. The room got cold and clammy and dark. I began to see demons. I was unable to move. I looked up at the clock, and the clock was going backwards. The emotion was, this is forever. There is no escape. There is no hope. There is no relief. This is what forever will be like. When you emotionally come to that place, you are just consumed by fear, by dread, by anxiety. I wish I could say my automatic reaction was to seek after God. The truth is, I had the opposite reaction. I believed that God had walked away from me and that I was no longer his son.
The hallucination ended, but Lee's health and mind continued to slip. A few days later, his wife found him unconscious.
I woke up and there was a doctor there, and he looked at me and he said, "You're one step away from a coma, 2 steps away from dying."
Doctors discovered that Lee's blood sodium level was critically low. His kidneys were badly damaged. They started treatments, but the recovery would take time. Later, his son came to be with him and to pray.
And I didn't want to pray with him because I still was recovering. I still was mentally confused to the degree that I thought God had walked away from me. He said, "You want to reconnect with God, don't you?" And I said, "Yes." He took me down a journey, and the pathway was to strip myself of the pretenses that you present when you go to God. In other words, we cling to our identity as a dad or a mom or a successful person or a homeowner, and he helped me kind of strip that away. That I wasn't a husband at that point, I wasn't a father, I wasn't a grandfather, I wasn't an author, I wasn't a pastor. To get to the point where it was just me and God. And that's when it struck me, wait a minute. I've been under the illusion that I've lost everything. And you know what? So what? What if I lost all my money? What if I lost my freedom? What if my friends walked out on me? Ultimately, I realized I have Jesus Christ, and that's enough. The grace of God is enough.
Although Lee did lose one of his kidneys, he came away with an understanding of God's grace he never had before. He shares his experience and more in his new book, The Case for Grace.
I don't want to go back to the point where I'm connecting with God as someone who's got it all figured out. My relationship with God is nothing but his gracious love for me, never deserving it, never meriting it. And when I have nothing to show to him, when I don't have the accomplishments and the bank account and the family and all these wonderful things that have happened over the years since I've been a Christian, you know what? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because ultimately, all it really matters is me and God.
That's a tough lesson to learn, but when you learn it, it makes all the difference. So often we look at worldly success. We look at, how much is in the bank account, or how many cars, or how big of a house do you have. In ministry, we sometimes look at it in terms of numbers. Are you successful? Without looking at the heart. And just like that story earlier in the show of the bush out in the desert where it looks good, but inside the fruit, you don't find anything. You certainly don't find anything nourishing. So do a little fruit inspection in your own life and ask yourself this question. If everything was taken away, if you had that Job experience where you lose it all, would you still be able to say, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the the name of the Lord? Would you still have that within you? Would you still find that kind of fruit growing in your life? When Jesus becomes your all and your all-sufficient one, that's the time where you can say, well done, good and faithful servant. We leave you this word from 2 Timothy. Stand steady and don't be afraid of suffering for the Lord. Bring others to Christ. Leave nothing undone that you ought to do. God bless you.